Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome to How to Get Hired. I am Bill, the company's expert, and it's good to see you all again. There is a chat, so if you're here, say hi in the chat. That's what they're for. And I see we got some people here already. We're going to be talking about how to get hired, how to answer job interview questions, how to talk about how to do job search, your entire job search campaign, okay? The approach you take, the places you look, how you discover job opportunities, and how you pursue them and how you get them, as well as salary negotiation and all that kind of stuff. That's all in play. We're going to cover it all. And I see we got several people here. So hello from India, says Gutty. Hello, Gutty. And says some very nice things. Thank you very much. Now, I received some questions in the comments, and I'm just going to jump to those to start this off. Here we go. So here are some questions sent in the comments. I wanted to save them and answer them properly rather than giving like a one-sentence answer. So someone says, thanks for your video. You were talking about first impressions. What are your thoughts on beards? Okay, this is something we don't talk about that's very important, okay? It's your personal image, your grooming, your choice of clothes, your attire, all that kind of stuff. That is actually pretty important. Now, listen, far be it for me to tell anyone how to look, okay? I'm not going to do that, but what I will do is I will explain something. The way, at least it used to work, and I believe it still does, generally, is that if you are ambitious and you're going for a higher level position for men, for guys, you have the choice of how you do your facial hair. And traditionally, the way it worked was that if you are clean shaven, that is in theory supposed to make you more approachable. You look friendlier. You look not as, what's the word? I don't want to say not as manly, but not as, I don't know, intimidating. Does that sound too pretentious? Like if you are going up to a customer service counter and the person there looks like Mountain Man Dan, right? You know, huge beard, you know, like the whole thing going, that cannot be as approachable as being clean cut, clean shaven. So that's the reason traditionally you would not see a lot of executives, male executives with, you know, handlebar mustache or mutton chops or, anything weird like that, right? The thing to do, and I'm joking here, the thing to do is just shave your face and don't shave your neck for a year. That would be something so original. Maybe, I don't know, maybe you're going into a place where, you know, that kind of thing is sort of, you know, it's kind of edgy. It's kind of, some artistic type thinking, you know. You could grow your sideburns really long. It joins a goatee, right? Goes all the way up. Shave the front of your head, the back of your head, spike everything up, and then you look like a flower. It's great. But no, that's what I would say. Listen, depending on the industry, depending on the setting, you're going to learn a bit about the corporate culture, how they do things there. And part of that is how they dress and how they do their grooming. So take your cue from the people who work there. If they all look a certain way, you know, if they're all, for all the guys, they've got like the whole lumberjack thing going. Hey, you know, maybe that's the thing to do there. But traditional places, if you're a guy, clean cut, especially if you're in a sort of white collar position. We're going to get to the chat in just a second, but I got a couple more questions. Here's one, says, another common question is to ask for the salary from your last position. Yes, this is when they ask you, so what was your compensation in your last job? How much were you making? Right? I don't think I've actually done a video on this. They might say, what are your salary expectations? I've talked about that. But when they ask you a sort of pointed question, how much do you make? You know, do you currently make? What does this question say? It says, you're obviously expecting a higher salary from your future employer. Well, I wouldn't say it's obvious. A lot of times you are, yes, but depending on what job you're taking, that may not be the case. And it's not actually, I hate to say this because this sounds really bad, but it's not automatic that you will be making more than your last position, okay? All things being equal, you will, but that's not some kind of guarantee or entitlement. So just keep that in mind, okay? If you're going to a current role that has less responsibilities than the last one, they may not see it like you're going to be making more than what you did in a previous position where you had more responsibilities. Okay, so just bear that in mind. Getting back to the question, it says, so still, after seeing this vid, I would like to give a range depending on the company culture. Let's see how that works. Okay, yeah, you could give a range. But listen, if they do ask you the pointed question, they say, how much do you currently make? Okay. This is not a court of law, okay? It's not like you're on the witness stand with a bunch of lawyers scrutinizing everything you're doing, okay? They are not entitled to a honest answer giving full and complete information about something confidential, right? That's the reality. A lot of younger people, they get intimidated by the situation. You go to a job interview and it's very formal and everybody's in suits and you're out of your comfort zone. You're on somebody else's turf in their location, maybe a conference room, maybe there's 3 or more people staring at you across the table. And then they ask you this question and they look dead serious when they do it. And so you feel a lot of pressure to answer whatever question they ask you, okay? That's all an illusion. Really, what's going on is this is exactly the same situation as you walking down the street and some stranger comes up to you and says, hey, buddy, what's your credit card number? Right? Now, are you going to just give it to them since they asked you? No, of course not. It's not within your own best interest to do that, right? So for that reason, okay, they're going to try and ask you a bunch of things in a job interview that really they don't deserve an honest answer to, and they don't deserve full and complete information. It is to your disadvantage to answer those questions honestly, okay? And this is one of them, my friends, okay? So that's the reality. If they say, how much money do you currently make? A great answer to that is to say something along the lines of, just as a personal policy, I don't disclose my compensation or compensation history. I'm sure you understand. Okay. Say something like that. It's polite. It's professional. It's reasonable. Okay. But you're not giving them your current compensation, because the only reason they're asking this is so that they can, they can try and determine your value. And they don't know your value, so they're going to sort of base it off the amount of money that somebody else is paying you and go with that, right? That's the whole reason they ask this. So don't give them that. Let them think that, you could be worth a lot more, okay? So if they suspect that you could be, let them keep thinking that. It's not to your interest to sort of tell them what your position is, reveal your hand as if this is a game of poker. Okay. That is now, if they press you, they say, well, I'm sorry, you need to give us this. And you say, well, I'm sorry. As I said, I'm unable to do that. It's just not something that I do. That is personal and confidential information. And I'm sure you would not disclose, everybody here would not easily disclose their full compensation to me either, right? If they push back, you push back. You don't get upset. You don't become unprofessional. You just say, well, I'm sorry, that's just not something I do. And, if they really want to make a big deal, I would say, well, there's no legal requirement that I have to do this. And, especially since this is our first encounter, something like that. Okay. But basically you don't yield on it. Okay. This is not something that you disclose. Now, I want to briefly go back to the chat here. We got some people talking. Tyler is here. Tyler says, I'm missing the birth of my first child to watch your live. Love your, holy crap. Well, Tyler, I don't know what to say. That's very flattering. But you know what? You really should go and attend that. This is really not worth something like that. And congratulations, by the way. Crystal says, Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Yes. And same to you and to everyone here. I wish you prosperity and success in 2023. Crystal says, how to get rid of the nervous energy before an interview? Practice. Okay, it comes down to that. there are little tips and tricks like don't drink a lot of caffeine, don't have a lot of, sugar or anything like that right before, things like that. But listen, you're going to be nervous to a certain extent. It's unavoidable. Everybody gets nervous. If you're a normal human being, you're going to be nervous. If you've done this 1,000 times before, you're still going to be nervous to a certain extent. Okay, I still get nervous before I get on these live streams, or any type of public speaking. That's part and parcel of the whole thing. Okay, but if you practice, if you do pretend interviews, mock interviews, and then after that you go to a lot of job interviews, okay, you're going to be a pro at this. You're going to recognize the feeling, and you're going to remember that you've been to a lot of these before and you felt this feeling, but you still kicked ass. Okay, that's what you're going to remember, and that will give you confidence. So don't worry about it. Practice makes perfect. Lauren says, what are your thoughts about asking for a salary increase during promotion or another role based on inflation in the coming year? Look, you can ask for whatever you want. Okay. You don't need, people often ask me like, can I ask for this? Yes, you can ask for anything. Okay. You could ask that you be given a chocolate sundae at 8 o'clock in the morning every day that you work as a condition of your employment. You could ask for anything. Okay. But the only thing that matters is what they offer you and then what you accept. Okay. So usually the way these things work, if it's any kind of business negotiation, if you see what I'm saying, any kind of business negotiation, what they'll do is you'll ask for something, they'll say no, okay? And then they'll proceed as if you're just going to give in to that, right? Like you say, I'm going to need 100,000. They say, well, we'll see. And then they do 2 more interviews with you. You get to the end of the process. They say, we want to hire you. And then they give you an employment contract for 50,000. Obviously, I'm just making up these numbers to make a point. And you at that point say, I'm sorry, I can't accept this. As I stated, I needed 100,000. So thank you very much. And I'll get back to you, or something like that. I love using that phrase. Okay, I'll get back to you. I've had people like, wait. Okay, let's change it. I've had people do that a lot. Okay, because that signals you're serious. People ask for anything under the sun when it's not in fact a requirement. You'll still take the job without it, but you're just seeing how much you can get. And they're not stupid. They realize this. So the default answer is no. What makes it serious is when you push back and you say, no, I'm sorry, I can't accept this. As I said, I need 100,000. Okay, so let me know if you're able to continue this process. Thank you. Right? That signals, okay, I'm actually serious. And they go, okay. And that's what you want to do. You want to leave it to the end of the process, because if you do, then at that point, they've decided they want you. They've got their hearts set on you. They've already gone way far down this path to get you. And it sucks to be stopped at the last minute after they've given you an employment contract and you kind of push back on it. Okay, so that's how that stuff works. You can ask for whatever you want. The only thing that matters is what you're going to actually dig your heels in over. Okay. Thanks, Lauren. Lauren's saying some very nice things about me. Thank you very much. And Lauren gave a super chat. Thank you once again, Lauren. You are awesome. That's great. It's very flattering. Thank you. Ronnie West says, great channel for self-advancement, many more. We appreciate you, the company's expert. You're absolutely welcome, Ronnie. And I'm glad you're here, and you're awesome that you are trying to improve your game when it comes to this stuff. Because sooner or later, you and everyone here, and everyone who's trying to improve themselves, you will come out on top. It's always a good thing. This is the slow tools to success. I can't speak this morning. Okay, I got a couple more questions here, so I'm just going to go through these because these are some things I wanted to go through. Okay, Someone asked me, in your opinion, do you think LinkedIn Premium is worth it? Listen, I'm sure it works for a lot of people. I myself had LinkedIn Premium for a couple of years, like 3 years ago or something like that. For me, ultimately, no, I decided to cancel it because it didn't really offer anything substantial that was worth paying for. And I say that in the sense that it may give people advantages depending on what you're trying to do on LinkedIn. But for me and the stuff that I try and do, it didn't really offer any value. The one thing I think it does, as I recall, is that it allows you to do a people search, or at least it did 3 years ago. It allows you to do a people search where the results are not restricted. If you don't have LinkedIn Premium and you try and do a search for people. So for example, in your hometown, okay, if you confine yourself to your hometown and do a search for all the people in your hometown that have a certain job title, okay, like, I don't know, sewerage treatment attendant, like whatever, okay, you want to find all of those in your hometown. You want a list of people. If you don't have LinkedIn Premium, it will only give you a certain number of results, and you have to be connected to those results, to each of those people, as either a first, second, or third degree connection, okay? If you get LinkedIn Premium, you don't have to be connected to them in any way. You get all the results without any filtering on it. So that's kind of the one thing that, as I recall, had some usefulness for me. But is it worth paying the price that they asked you? For me, it wasn't after a while. It's like, it's not necessary. So that's my answer, my personal opinion on that. Okay, the question is, what do you do for fun outside of work? An actual question or a bullshit question? Oh, that's great. Listen, that could go both ways. If that's asked by a hiring manager in an informal sense, they're trying to get to know you, they're just trying to have a conversation with you. They're asking you about your hobbies, your interests, that's cool. That's nothing wrong with that. On the other hand, if this is asked by a recruiter in a formal situation where they're asking you formal questions off a paper or something, and they're writing down the answer to what you say, that's crap. This is a bullshit question. You can't determine if somebody is suitable for a job really by asking stuff like this. You really can't. Okay? Especially these days with all the emphasis on diversity and like many types of diversity, including diversity of, lifestyles and people and backgrounds. You don't all want just one type of person in an organization. I mean, that's been scientifically demonstrated. You want some people that are into D&D. You want some people that are into racing. You want some people that are into movies. You want some people that are into sports. You want different types of people. Okay. So asking a question like this, I mean, it even contradicts the theory of HR that you can't really select a person based on stuff like this. The only valid reason they would have for asking something like this is if you said something that's a red flag. Like you said, I'm running my own business on the side. That's what I do in my spare time. Right? That's a red flag. Don't say that. Even if that was true, don't say that, because that's going to disqualify you. They don't want somebody who's got their own thing on the side. They want someone who's dedicated 100% to being an employee for this organization. So, okay. So in that sense, it's not a bullshit question, but if a recruiter asks you this in a formal sense and they are analyzing your answer to see if you're a suitable candidate, that is the very definition of bullshit. So I will say that. Let's go back to the chat for a second here. Jack Alexander says, good morning, Bill. What are the best tips for a first round Zoom call interview for a business development manager position? Ooh, that's pretty specific. Okay. I have never interviewed somebody for a business development manager position. And I haven't done that kind of thing over Zoom. So what I would say, what are the best tips? Well, first of all, apart from learning the answers to all the common questions, apart from practicing the interview, like do mock interviews with a friend. I would do, I would not be new to the technology. I would have done some Zoom calls first. And if you haven't done any Zoom calls, okay, do a couple. Get like your friend or whatever, to just, or like a family member, whatever. Just going to have a Zoom call just to make sure that everything looks good. I look okay on camera. You can hear me. Okay, the frame is getting everything I expect it to get and nothing more, right? Wear pants. That's probably a big one. Okay. That's like the cliched thing, right? People do the Zoom call without any pants. And then, oh no, you've got to answer the doorbell or something. And then whoops. So, don't fall into any of that kind of stuff. Do a practice session first. Now, business development manager position. Okay. Apart from the obvious stuff, like you have to have probably worked in business development and sales. Okay. Client relations, customer relations, that kind of stuff. They're going to ask you, why should we hire you as opposed to any other candidate? And they're going to look for accomplishments. They're going to look for somebody who has demonstrated their ability. They don't care as much about credentials. They care more about experience and ability. And they're also going to be looking for somebody who's very charismatic and very persuasive as a person. So in addition to having good social skills, when you're on the video interview and they can see you and interact with you and they get a sample of what you're like to deal with, okay, practice being charismatic, practice, being somebody that once they're done talking to you on the Zoom call, they think, that guy, that person was awesome. I'd like to talk to them more, right? That's the feeling that they should come away with. Okay, so hopefully that gives you a starting point anyway. Obviously, it's a huge question, but hopefully that should get you started. Lauren's going to need that Sunday. Good. Yes, exactly. It's all vitamins too. Ronnie West says definitely every day is an interview. Yeah, I know. What a dystopia. Okay, Tenacious Danzig. There's a name. What's the longest time you can reasonably ask for to consider a job offer? Had a second interview before Christmas, but an interview for a preferred role lined up for next week. There is no answer to that. It depends on the situation, depends on how in demand you are and what the competition is. I would not take more than 24 hours to give some kind of an answer. Okay? So you acknowledge receipt. You say, thank you very much for, assuming this comes in over email or something, you respond within 24 hours, say, thank you very much for the offer. And then you either give an answer or you say, I will get back to you by this date. And preferably that date, you're allowed more time the higher the position, right? It's kind of, that isn't formalized, but that's just kind of how things go. If they're offering you a CEO job, they're not going to give you one day to respond to it. You know what I mean? But if you're being offered a job at McDonald's, I mean, they're not going to give you a whole week to consider. So, if it's a lower level job within one day, I would say yes or no. Okay. And if you're in doubt, say yes, take it, start it. I mean, what's the worst that could happen? You decide, no, it isn't really for you. And then you leave. You don't have to tell anyone about that. You don't have to give these people as a reference ever again in the future. Apart from, it might have some effects if you're on some kind of social assistance, like you're on social insurance or something, then it might have an effect. But you know what I mean? When in doubt, just say yes. If you really don't know, I would say yes rather than taking a long time to consider, because that in itself can be the kiss of death. So hopefully that makes sense. So if it's a mid-level job, a mid-manager job, I would say 3 days max, depending on the situation. Gutty says, how do you answer, how did you manage your team? Well, you could, obviously that the answer is going to depend on how you did in fact manage your team. What people want to hear whether this is true or not, what people want to hear is that you focused on the people and you focused on results. Okay? That's what people want to hear. Now, if you're being interviewed by a recruiter, I mean, they don't know. They don't know. Have they ever managed teams of people before? Maybe some have. Maybe they're a senior recruiter, I suppose. But talking to some junior recruiter, I mean, they don't know the answer to this. They don't know what a good answer is, what a bad answer is. So, like you can go and like the other thing that they're looking for here is that this kind of crosses the boundary into the realm of a technical question. Okay? When they ask you a technical question, the main thing that they want to hear is that, you have sort of an abundance of information to say. So, for example, if you're being interviewed for a job where you manage a team of people, and they ask you, how did you manage your team? And you go, I told people to do their job, like that's a bad answer because you're giving the impression that you don't actually know how to manage people. It suggests that you don't have as much experience at doing it as you're letting on. Okay. If, on the other hand, you said, okay, well, the number one priority for me is that my team members are focused on results, okay? I want to make sure that they're content, they're reasonably content, and that they are focused on results. So to that aim, I prioritize this first, then I prioritize that, then I prioritize this. Another thing I found is that if you motivate people in this particular way, okay, that will work with about 90% of people. So the majority of people will respond favorably if you treat them this way. On the other hand, although a lot of people advocate for this, I've found that that's not quite as effective in these type of situations because of this. Okay, so for that reason, my high level approach is to do this, and then I incorporate this tactic and this tactic. Something like that. If you said an answer that was within that format, then they'd be like, okay, this person knows what they're talking about. They obviously have a lot of experience managing a team. So they pass the question. Okay, it's not so much what you say specifically, it's that you can answer it and you're demonstrating that you have a lot of experience with it. Okay, it's sort of like a tactic interviewers will do where they sort of, they look at your resume, and on your resume, you're saying that you have a lot of experience. They want to see some proof. If you indeed have that much experience, you should be able to answer a couple of technical questions about how to do it. And it should become very easy and very quickly to you. So that's what they're checking for when they ask that kind of technical question. Where did I leave off here? Okay, Crystal, I think it's also important for us to ask the right questions in the interview. We want to make sure that they're a good fit for us as much as we are for them. Yeah, okay, so Crystal, okay. You're on the other side of the table, I see. Okay, fair enough. Yeah. There's a lot of conflicting information on that topic. This idea that, the candidate is interviewing the company as much as the company's interviewing the candidate. Right? That whole topic. A lot of people say that, and especially a lot of technical people. If you notice, it's a lot of technical people that tend to say that and tend to put forward that idea. Okay? My recommendation is that when it comes to that stuff, no, don't follow that. Because the thing is, if you're a candidate and you take this attitude that, I'm interviewing you as much as you're interviewing me. First of all, no, you're wrong. Okay. They called you in. They sent out an application. You responded. They are now interviewing you. Okay. So no, they're interviewing you. You're not interviewing them. You don't have control here. Okay. Now, the other thing is that if you take that attitude, you can easily come across as really, really entitled. And that's almost an instant disqualification right there before anything else. If an employer interviews a candidate and the candidate says, I don't even know if I'm going to really take this job, if it's really for me. this kind of thing. What does that communicate? That communicates, no, we don't want to work with this person. They're arrogant, they're entitled, and that's not who we're looking for. We're looking for a candidate whose attitude is, I would love to work here. This company is awesome. I'd love doing this work, and this would be a tremendous opportunity for me. So yeah, I'm interested. That's the person they want to hire, okay? Not the entitled person that's like, I'll see if I'm interested, and what's your compensation like? Do you have a free cafeteria? Stuff like that. That's not what employers want to hire, okay? Yes, I know it's what everybody's thinking, right? We're all thinking this. If you're considering taking a job, it's very important. And to a large degree, you feel like you're just jumping blind into a situation you don't know much about, right? Now, you contrast this with what a lot of salespeople types will do in a job interview. Okay, what they'll do is they'll just get the job. They'll get the job first, and then they'll worry about all the hand-wringing about, do I really want to do this? Does it really make sense for me to do from a compensation perspective, from a career perspective, from a lifestyle perspective, right? If they don't offer you the job, what the hell does it matter, right? It's a moot point. So get the job offer in your hand, then you can decide if this is something you really want to do, okay? Then you can ask them counter questions. You can take a while to get back to them, like somebody else was asking about a moment ago. Okay? So that's what I recommend. The problem is if you really take that attitude to heart, like, you're interviewing each other, that can really blow up in your face as a candidate. Kim says, do we need 2 years at a current company before you start looking? No. You can start looking at 2 days at the current company. It depends on your situation. There are no rules. Okay. In fact, that's becoming more and more common, as I've mentioned many times on my YouTube channel. As we go into the future, people are staying at their job for less and less time before they move. That's a trend that has occurred since the 1950s, and it's gone in this linear sort of progression where, in the 1950s and 60s, you'd get a job, and a lot of times it was for life. You'd be there your entire career until you retired, and they'd take care of you. This kind of parental relationship that the organization had with you. You basically sell your soul to them and work hard for them. They take care of you. It was like a nice arrangement. And ever since then, people are leaving sooner and sooner and sooner, and it's becoming much more of a straight exchange. I give you my time, you give me cash. Right? I don't expect you to take care of me. I don't expect you to, make all these arrangements, for me when I'm in my old age or anything like that. I just want the cash. So we've been going more and more towards that. And the average length of employment has been, you can't see my other hand, it's been decreasing. Right? So no, you don't need 2 years at a current company before you start looking. Okay, especially if it's a crappy job you jumped into. You got a common thing is to get hired by a hiring manager at a company. You start working there. Very short time after, your hiring manager is transferred to another department, or they leave the company, and you get a new boss that did not hire you. They inherited you. You liked the first person that hired you. You got along great with them. You took the job because they were going to be your boss. But you don't like this new person. They're a jerk. You're miserable. Maybe the company gets bought or sold or whatever. Things change, and it's no longer a sweet deal. It's a pretty crappy situation. So that can happen 2 months after you start. So no, you don't have to stay and prolong the misery if it's really something that you don't want to do. Never stop looking. Okay, if you're going to do what's right for yourself, always have kind of casually an ear to the ground on, what other opportunities might be out there. Okay, that's the best thing to do for you. And you got to look out for yourself, because organizations and employers generally, they do not look out for you. They look out for themselves, and they don't care about you, really. That's the reality. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Thank you to Kim for the question. You're welcome, Tenacious Danzig. Tenacious Danzig, that reminds me of World War II, right? First, the accepted history, the first action in World War II was the Germans fighting the Poles over Danzig and the Danzig corridor. So yes. B2 says, I'm 26 and have a stable job, but it's not really aligned with my degree. I was thinking that I should take the risk to change companies that is more to my field. Excuse me. Okay, so you want to change companies that is more to my field. Should I try? B2, yes, absolutely. Listen, that is another extremely common situation. You get an educational qualification in one thing, one thing here, but you get hired over here for something else. Okay. And that's common because, maybe the thing you got, there's a lot of transportable skills. That describes my first career job. I got trained as an engineer, and I ended up working as a person supervising a team of technicians. That's nothing to do with engineering. That's very, very common. Okay, if you want to sort of now pursue your main line, what you originally wanted to do, sure, go for it. You should totally try. I wouldn't do anything. What you want to do is you want to do a best of both worlds. You want to keep what you have. Okay, you don't want to jeopardize what you have, but at the same time, you want to look for something better. Okay, so as long as you're doing that, yes, I wholeheartedly recommend it. Don't do anything where you're trying to go for something else, but you're actually jeopardizing what you have. Okay, remember, a bird in the hand, right? A bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. That means hold on to what you have. It's worth more than something that you don't have. Okay. That was the shortest explanation of that thing ever. Gutty says, how do you handle a conflict on your team? Oh, that's a big answer to that, Gutty. In order to be meaningful, I can't just answer it in like 2 sentences. Well, look, a way to summarize it is you prioritize the people. You take personal relationships very seriously, and you prioritize the healthy working business relationships between people on your team. Okay? Like, without getting into a ton of niggling details of how you do that, a simple answer is like, look, if it's like really disruptive, you have two people on a team that don't get along, they won't work together. That's a problem. Okay. If it's a conflict between you and one of the team members, okay, that's a slightly different situation. But basically, the short answer of how to address conflict is a one-word answer, and it's communication. Okay, so what you would do is, if it's a conflict between you and someone on the team, you would have a private, confidential, one-on-one meeting with them. Okay, and you would want to, you're not just going to talk at them. Okay, you want to really listen to what they have to say. You want to try and understand their perspective. Why are they taking a certain opinion? Why are they behaving a certain way? You want to understand the root cause of all that, and you want to actually listen to them. The goal is not to just force your will upon them. The goal is to get a two-way communication going. And I mean, this is where we get into the details. That can only happen if they actually believe that you're trying to help and that you're being genuine and that you are open to listening to them. So you got to do a whole bunch of stuff with that. And, you don't want to talk down to them. People hate being told they're wrong. Even when we're wrong, we all hate being told we're wrong. Once you tell someone you're wrong in some way, shape, or form, if you communicate that, now you don't have communication. Now you have a sort of battle. It's an attack. They're not listening. They're not receptive to anything you're saying to them. Okay? So, this kind of thing. Okay, so communication is the short answer. If it's a conflict between two people, you get them together, you have one-on-one meetings with both of them individually, then you have a one-on-one or you have a meeting with the two of them together. Okay, if it's a big conflict and this is a serious situation, that's how you do that stuff. At the entry level jobs, bottom level jobs, you may not, it may not be possible to do all of this. Okay, this is more for professional type jobs where people are working there for years and years and years, and you know they're paid a lot of money and they do a lot of important work. You know, so you've got a lot riding on it, and that's why you have to solve these, and you have to solve them properly. Okay, so anyway, it's a big topic. I can't really get into all of it here, but hopefully that gives you a start on that. So, but that's a great question. Great question. Okay, if you learn to master this, you will be a force to be reckoned with in whatever workplace that you find yourself. Okay, where do they leave off? Kim says, a Google recruiter said she wouldn't look at a candidate with less than 2 years at a current company. I thought that was entitled. Yes, it is. Yeah. And there's more than one entitled recruiter out there. I mean, this is what happens when you go through standard channels, right? And, you know, companies, they want to put everyone sort of in the same room. They want to compare apples to apples. And you're going in with all the cattle, you know, and they have to resort to tactics like that, methods like that, to filter people down. As I've said many times, the job interviewing process, it's an elimination process. Okay, so they're looking for ways of eliminating people at every step. So the way you succeed is you don't get eliminated. You focus on not getting eliminated. That's kind of the way to win at that game. That's not the only way to get hired. In fact, that's not even the most popular way of getting hired. The most popular way that people get hired is through some form of networking. And that works completely differently because they're not looking at 100 people at once. They're looking at you and only you. And they're considering, should we hire this person? You know? You might have one or possibly two other candidates maybe competing, but that's it. You're not going in there with 100 people, you know? So it's a little bit of a different thing. Okay? And once again, it depends what your goals are. If you must work at Google, that's your ambition, and this is the only way they hire, and maybe you've tried the networking thing and it's just they've put a lot of barriers in place against it or something. I don't know. Usually we don't see that, but and the only way to get hired is through this process, and what this one recruiter told you is what every recruiter does at Google. If that's the case, then yes, I guess you have no choice. But that's a lot of ifs. Okay, that's a lot of what ifs. I suspect that none of those, like certainly not all of them are true. Okay, so end result is you don't have to worry about the whole 2-year thing. Okay. Okay, I'm just going to do a couple more of these questions here because I needed to get through those today. Okay, so this is what somebody sent in. They said, quick question, I came up with a more efficient process at work. It will save 90% of our cost and make the process take 2 hours rather than 2 days. This process is used anytime we have a vendor cost change. How can I come up with a raise I deserve for this? So like, how can I ask for a raise and how much that raise should be? Okay. This is another hot topic on in these circles of how to get a job. The question of raises. I don't know why people ask about this. You can ask for anything at any time. There's nothing stopping you from asking, okay? The default answer any employer will have is no. Now, why is it no? Well, number one, they're on a budget. Money is tight. Every single employee feels they deserve more, every single employee wants to get paid more, okay? Every single employee is really hoping that their boss will pay them more. And some of them ask, some of them don't have the courage to ask. But the problem is that the employer can't pay everybody more money. They just can't. They don't have that much money. Okay. So that's why their default answer is no. The second reason they're going to say no is because, well, listen, you are demonstrating your value by virtue of the fact that you are still working here. We're paying you this amount of money, the amount of money that you claim is beneath you. We're paying you that, and you're staying here. That tends to suggest that that is what you're worth. If you were worth a lot more than that, you would quit here in a second and go get a much better paying job across the street. But you're not doing that. So that tends to suggest that we are paying you, what you're worth. Now, sometimes that's true, sometimes that's not, okay? They don't know, but this is the only way they have to really probe and get that evidence, right? To see how much you're actually worth, okay? So you can ask for whatever you want. The only time you will get it is if you, first of all, you have an altruistic boss, someone who generally likes you and wants to keep you happy and is willing to say, look, I'm going to take some of the money that I've been given to run my operation and give it to you. Okay. So that happens. We do see that a lot, and that's great. People are good human beings. The other reason they may want to do this is if they honestly believe that if you don't get what you're asking for, you will leave and you're super valuable and they don't want to lose you. Okay. That's the other reason. Okay. So that's usually how this question goes. Okay. We don't make more money usually by getting raises. Instead, we make more money by quitting and going to a different job that pays you a lot more. If you are worth that much more, then other people will see it and you will make that much more. Okay? That's how that works. Now, the second question is, how much should the raise be? Well, that's a very simple question. You just do a simple math problem and an accounting problem where, like, if this thing is going to save you X much money or it's going to generate you X much more money, you just add that up. And that's how much it should be. Okay, that's the total value of your savings. And then the question is then, how much of a percentage should go into your pocket of that savings as opposed to the company? Okay, and that's going to depend on what industry you're in and who are the individuals you're dealing with. Okay, a good rule, if it's a smaller amount of money, is like, maybe in the area of 10%, 20%. Okay. So that's what I would say to that. Okay. So thank you for the question. YouTube doesn't list the channel name anymore. It just lists the handles. So people have like these weird alphanumeric handles. So I don't know the name of the person that sent that in. It just gives you an alphanumeric handle. I don't like that about the new handles. They need to, I don't mind the handles, but it would be nice to know the name of the person that sent it in. So YouTube, if you're listening, I'm sure you're not. YouTube's algorithm and machine learning, if you're listening, I'm sure you're not. Okay, another question here. How do I answer questions telling you to talk about your measurable success in your previous projects? Well, okay, this is where we get into accomplishments, okay? Now, here's the rule of thumb, okay? If you're a manager, okay, if this is serious and you're a manager, the way you do accomplishments is there's basically two metrics. One is percentage improvement, okay? The other one is money, okay? So for example, I implemented a new system and it made the process for handling customer complaints 24% more efficient. That meant we could handle 24% more customer complaints using the same resources than we could previously. Okay, so a 24% improvement. Okay, so that's one type of accomplishment where it's measured in a percentage improvement. Okay, another example would be I implemented some changes to our process of submitting bids for contracts. Okay, so for job contracts. We're a construction company. We bid on jobs. We had a bidding process where it gets all these approvals and you scrutinize it through all these departments and then it goes out, right? I implemented some changes to that process. And what it did is it enabled a 15% improvement on the timeline. So we could submit bids of the same quality and the same caliber, but it took 15% less time. It shaved 15% off the timeline. Okay, that enabled us to do more bids. Okay, something like that. So that's the first metric. The second metric is money. So you would say, okay, I was put in charge of managing this particular operation, and I implemented certain changes. Okay, I did process improvements, and that led to a 32% increase in revenue in the first year, okay, of the new changes. So our revenue went from what it was before, and then under the new system, it was increased by 32%, thanks to the when I was put in charge of it. Okay, so those are basically how you talk about accomplishments. Now, at a worker level, it's almost like a free for all. You could do it in many different ways, I suppose. Depends what that particular company culture is. But if you're a manager, that's universally what they speak of. They speak of percentage improvement, and they speak of dollars or whatever currency you're in. Okay? We saved this much money, we increased our revenue by this much money, we increased profit by this much money, or operating cost, whatever. Okay, so it's in terms of money. You don't just say, I did a better job at this. You have to quantize it, and you quantize it using one of those two metrics, percent or currency. Okay, and by definition, measurable success means numbers. Okay, so that works out. So what's the moral here? The moral here, and I've talked about this before, is if you're doing your resume, okay, when you're in the sort of resume writing stage of your job search campaign, one of the things that you should do, especially if you're ambitious and you're wanting to get something more towards a management position, is figure out what your accomplishments were at each of your previous jobs, and just try and estimate in terms of percentage improvement and in terms of dollars or currency, what the impact was that you had. Okay? So let's say you were in a job where you, you were a knowledge worker, you had to do data entry or, whatever, and you are a bit of a programmer, you're a developer, you know how to code a little bit. So you created a little app or a little program that like automated some of your job. It took the numbers from here and it entered them here and it checked them against certain requirements and all this. It did all that automatically. So it made you more efficient. So you could calculate, okay, how much time did this save me every day? If I had done that work manually, it would take me an hour and a half, as opposed to with the app, I just click it, it's done in 5 seconds. So I shaved an hour and a half off my workload every day. I worked for 8 hours. So that was, you calculated, that was a, 20% improvement. Okay. And it reduced errors, human errors, manual data entry errors by a certain percentage. Okay. So you can start quantizing these things and saying, I implemented this, process improvement. You wrote a little program that automated some of the functions, and it led to 20% quicker or time improvement on how long it takes to do. It led to a 150% improvement in reducing human error in the process, and it led to this other thing. And you write those onto your resume. So your resume for each job, it still describes your duties, okay, your duties and responsibilities, but you can add accomplishments like this, okay? So depending on what they're looking for, if they're looking for duties and responsibilities, you've got that on your resume. If they're looking for accomplishments that shows initiative, that shows greater ability and innovative thinking, all that, you have that too, okay? And also, it's great to be able to answer questions like this with some numbers. Okay, so anyway, there you go. Hopefully that makes sense. That's a great question. Where? Oh, I hate like taking my eye off the feed because the feed keeps scrolling when I'm not looking at it. So when I come back to it, it's moved. I don't know how far it's moved. I think it moved a lot, actually. Sorry, just bear with me a second here as I find where I left off. Oh man, I'm falling behind. Do not want to go into details of the project. Okay, you also say, but you do not want to go into details of the project. You want to give measurable success. Well, that's great. Same answer still applies. You say, I did a certain improvement. I implemented improvements to this particular process, and it resulted in a 20% increase in volume of work done. There you go. Using the same resources, our output increased by 20% because of the changes that I implemented. There you go. You don't have to go into details of what you did, or what the project was, or what the situation was. You just say that. Now, if they want more information on any particular aspect of it, they'll ask, okay? But yeah, you could just summarize it like that. And, it's easy, it's quick, and it has a high impact. You're absolutely welcome, B2. Thanks for the very nice things you're saying. And I'm glad it's helping. JC Diz says, good evening, Bill from the Philippines. Good evening from Canada. It's actually good morning here. Diz. I thought it'd be Phil from the Philippines, right? But I do like the Diz thing. I can't stop saying it now. Okay. Oh, there's a good name. It says, hello, Bill. First, I want to thank you for your videos. They helped me a lot. Prefer your questions, searching, release. Excellent. That's great to hear. Oh, it jumped again. God. Okay, here we go. Okay, I got a question. I studied policymaking. Do you think there are some differences in passing a job interview in the public sector compared to the... Oh, yes, there's a lot. It's two different worlds, generally. Okay? If you're going into the private sector, but you're working in an extremely large multinational corporation, it can sometimes feel a little bit like government, sometimes. But yeah, otherwise, it's night and day. Two different cultures, two different attitudes, two different ways of assessing somebody's value, two different sets of values. So yes, night and day. And it can be a real gear shift if you're moving from one to the other. I experienced that firsthand a few years ago when I went from working in the private sector for many, many, many years to doing teaching in academia in a university. And it's like, holy crap, it was just, it was completely different. Every sort of thing about professional life is just turned on its head. The way people behave is different. The way people talk to each other is different. Like everything. The way people make decisions, completely different. It was quite a challenge for me to really step back into that world. It felt like I was a university student again for the first time in many years. And what was funny was that, how when you're young, you have these feelings of rebellion, for want of a better word. Basically, it means that you're treated like crap and you don't like it, right? That's kind of what I'm describing. You're getting tired of being treated like cattle, like a number, like you don't matter, being talked down to, being told, you need to do this and you need to change your attitude or whatever. It's like, I actually start to get a twinge of those feelings, Again, after like decades and decades and decades, it's like, wow, I thought that was something that was associated with youth. No, it's actually associated with how you're being treated in a way, It's kind of strange, really weird. Anyway. Okay, so yes, and yeah, so hopefully that makes sense for the public sector, private sector thing. Shona Hill says, hey, Mark. Okay, that's a good start. Thanks for helping me get my first corporate job. I don't know if you remember me, but I'm the old 26-year-old, and I'm now more confident and secure in my career thanks to you. Well, congratulations. That's awesome. That's awesome. And I'm glad that you're on the up and up and you're growing. That's what it's all about. And I do recognize the name Shona Hill. Yes. Yes. Gutty W says, interviewer says, I will consider you as a freshman because you are coming after a long gap. How do you deal with such a situation when your credentials and past experience are being nullified? This is the beauty of this process, isn't it? You know, it's like, how can I put this? It's like you have a certain amount of value and you go and interview for a job, and then the person there needlessly makes you feel like you're this tall. You know, that's beautiful, right? That's a sign of a bad company. I mean, what they're doing is they're demonstrating right before your eyes that they don't treat people with respect, okay? And unfortunately, dealing with essentially empty-headed, condescending, arrogant, and entitled recruiters is unfortunately part and parcel of this process. And if you're dealing with that right now, you have my deepest sympathy. In my career, I've never met such off-putting people as some of the people that I remember. I still, to this day, I remember, like decades ago, interviewing for jobs and how they spoke to you and how they treated you, and some of the things that they said, you know, like kind of like this, like they're saying, oh, you know, you haven't worked in a while, so as far as I'm concerned, you're fresh coming out of school. None of that work experience matters. It's like, and you're thinking probably like, you know, are you off your rocker? It's like, of course it matters. It's real. It existed. You know, it's like someone telling you, well, the educational qualification you have is absolutely useless. It's pointless. So I'm going to regard you as if you have no post-secondary education or something like that. I mean, how do you respond to that? You know, what you want to do is sort of get up and leave and say a few choice things to them. Unfortunately, you also are there presumably because you want the job, right? So you restrain yourself and you smile and nod and you kind of, you know, yes, sir, you know, go along with whatever they say. Unfortunately, a lot of people across the table, people interviewing you for jobs, whether they are recruiters, whether they are hiring managers or other people, they will take full advantage of this situation I just described, okay, the situation you're in, to talk to you in a way that is not just unprofessional, not just rude, but it's absolutely aggravating and disrespectful. And that's putting it mildly. And sometimes it takes all of our strength to restrain ourselves in these situations. And sometimes when we're young, we may not be able to fully restrain ourselves. Hopefully, though, as we get older, we learn that, no, we develop that self-control, because that is an essential skill to be a professional, okay, and operate in businesses. If you want to be trusted with supervising people, supervising, you know, money, supervising projects, you have to have that self-control. That's just something you need. And this is going to be the stress test of it, let me tell you. What I would do, Gutty, is I would really, like, if you're not doing this already, I would really look into getting a job through networking. I know I say that a lot, but it's true. Okay, it is the most popular way that people get jobs. Okay, they don't respond to a job ad and then go to a job interview with a recruiter. That is not actually the most popular way of getting a job. Most people are surprised when I say this. Don't take my word for it. Go out and do your own research on this. You will see that it's true. Okay? And so this is the kind of thing you encounter when you're applying for a job through the standard channels, where you apply for a job, you respond to a job ad, you send in an application, and then you get called for a job interview with a recruiter, okay? And there's a lot of good recruiters, but there's a hell of a lot of bad ones. This is a bad one, because even if the recruiter thought this, excuse me, the professional thing to do would be to keep it to yourself. In the same way that, if you're talking to somebody and you might decide in your head, this person I'm talking to, I think they're an idiot, right? You keep that to yourself. You don't say, you know what, you're an idiot, right? Like, you don't say that to people, okay? It's very unprofessional. It's very disrespectful. But that's kind of what the equivalent of what this recruiter is doing to you, okay? So what does that say? It says that, one, you probably don't want to deal with this person. Number two, they don't value you. So you can make your best case for why you should be a good employee, but it'll fall on deaf ears. Number three, it may signal that if the organization is hiring a recruiter like this and trusting them to be the gatekeeper for new employees, it's probably not a good organization to work for. You know what I mean? And I would make sure that in addition to applying for jobs like this, you're also learning about how to get a job using networking. That will be far more positive. The experience, if you do it right, will be far more positive. God, excuse me. And if you do get a job, it'll be a much better job at the end of the day, where they believe in you and they see more of your value than going through stuff like this. Okay. Now, the flip side of it is that it could be a double bluff. They're doing this to try and get a rise out of you. They're trying to provoke you to see if you have the self-control to handle it professionally, or you're just going to lose it and say something rude and, withdraw your application, something like that. Okay. So that could also be going on. If it is going on, I still say that's unprofessional. Okay. That's not really the way to do things. You don't, in my opinion, it's kind of outside of my code of ethics. You don't really piss people off just to see if they'll lose it. That's not really a valid way to assess somebody's suitability for a role. Okay. So that's what I'll say about that. Mark says, hi, Bill. Question. You've talked about utilizing social media like LinkedIn. Do you think you could secure a mid-level management job without having a presence on any of these platforms? Privacy reasons? Yeah, definitely. Definitely. You don't need them. It's a tool. It is a very useful tool. LinkedIn is a very useful tool if you use it correctly. But is it the be-all, end-all? No. Now, if people know of your reputation, okay, you work in a company, you work in an industry, and people know of you, they know who you are, they know you do great work. You might make a lot of connections through the course of doing your job. Like, let's say, for example, you're a corporate salesperson, okay? I don't know, Rolls-Royce, they make jet engines, okay? And you work for Rolls-Royce as a corporate salesperson. So you're going to aerospace events, you're communicating regularly with airlines, people that buy jet engines, okay? And so after a while, if you're in that role for a while, people will start to know you. People at the customers, these airlines, will know who you are. And the people that you deal with on the other end, they will probably think highly of you. Yeah, you know your stuff. You're a professional. You're easy to deal with. You're very charismatic. So you could apply for a job with them. You could say, hey, I like your company. If there ever is a role opening up at your company that I can help you guys out, let me know, because I'd like to jump over to you guys, for whatever reason. Yeah, you can do that quite simply without the use of LinkedIn, certainly. So yeah, it's totally possible. LinkedIn is just a tool to discover other people and then connect with them and then be able to set up meetings and things like that. Okay, that's all it is. And in the process, you also get to see essentially their resume. This is their background. This is where they've worked. This is what degrees or education they have. And that's their title. Stuff like that. That's all it is. Okay. What incluses on resume for managers? What? How tall about failures? I'm sorry, I don't fully understand what you're saying. What should I do I find out that I'm underpaid in a new job I took 3 months later. Oh, you found out 3 months into the job that you're underpaid? Well, presumably you would look for another job. I don't think you can really ask them, you can get them to increase their amount they're paying you. Okay, it may be possible if you're important and you threaten to leave and you actually back it up. You're actually willing to walk out the door if they say no. You know, and if you are important to them, then you have a chance. But usually the standard way to fix this is to just get a better paying job. I'm sorry if that's not what you want to hear, but that is the reality. How to talk about failures. Now, are you talking about in a job interview? Yeah, it's very simple. You don't talk about failures, okay? It's just that simple. They would love you to talk about failures in a job interview. That's why they ask those questions. The biggest question, if you've seen any of my videos, you know what I'm going to say. The king of those questions is, what are your weaknesses? What they're actually asking is, tell me why we wouldn't hire you. We're looking to eliminate candidates. Okay, that's what our job is. We start with like 100 candidates, and then we eliminate them, and then we're left with one. That's who we hire. Okay, that's what we do. We eliminate candidates. So why would we eliminate you? And you say, well, reason number one, this, reason number two, this, reason number three, that. And they go, thank you very much. That's very kind of you to give us such full and complete information. Thank you for your time today. We'll let you know. And then you're eliminated because you gave them the reason to eliminate. Makes their job real easy. They don't have to dig very hard. Normally, they'd have to ask all kinds of questions and really probe and look for evidence that, what you said on your resume is true. But you just handed the reason right to them. You said, well, number one, I've got my own company that I'm trying to start on the side that I work on in the evening, so I won't be available for overtime. That's one of your weaknesses. So what are your failures? Well, last job I had, they gave me responsibility for this, and I had my own ideas about how to do that job or that particular project, and I screwed it up. It was a failure. I spent a lot of money and resulted in bad results. It annoyed our customers. It required us to redo the whole thing again at our own cost. And I was reprimanded by my boss. And my boss was reprimanded for them putting me in charge of this. It was obvious that I wasn't ready to do that kind of work. And they say, okay, well, thank you very much. That's a great example of a failure. And then they eliminate you because you are not the best candidate, right? Remember, these people don't know you. They're getting a first impression of you. And if the only thing they have to go on is the fact that, well, your name is Bill and you screwed up your last job, I don't think it needs to go any further beyond there. They're just going to end there, eliminate you, and focus on other candidates. Okay? So you don't want to be mentioning anything in a job interview or on your resume or on your application or in any way, shape, or form that paints you in a bad light, because all they'll do is they will hire the other candidate that didn't give them any dirty laundry on them. Okay? That's how these things work. These questions are a trap. Don't believe all the recruiters out there that say, well, the way to handle those questions is to be honest. And what we look for is evidence that you have in fact screwed up, you admitted your screw up, and you improved yourself in some way. That's what we look for. Yeah. Some recruiters actually do that. A minority of recruiters. The vast majority of them don't have the discipline or maturity to actually do that. They simply use this as a way of making their job easier. It's a shortcut for them to get the dirt on you. What better way? They ask you for it, you give it to them, and there we go. Easy. They can take the rest of the interview off, basically. Okay. How convinced an employer when to shift from another... Sorry, you lost me on that one. Oh, okay. Thank you so much. The job interviews in the public sector have been very tough, and I noticed that the things you said were recognizable with a few very... Sorry. When you write the questions, please try and use complete sentences and proper grammar. Gutty says, how do you answer, are you innovative or creative? Can you tell us about your last innovation? Yeah, well, the answer is yes. I am innovative and I am creative. Okay, and then they say, can you tell us about your last innovation? Well, this is where preparation comes into play. Okay, for something called behavioral interview questions, that's where they ask you a question and the answer is a story that's particular to you. Okay, so for example, they say, tell me about a time where you solved a problem using creative thinking. Okay, now there is no standard answer to this because every single person is going to have a different story that they did, right? So how do you prepare for those questions? Well, the way you prepare for them is you think about between 5 and 10 stories, which are usually your best accomplishments, okay, from your past. Okay, so remember earlier in this stream, I was talking about an example of somebody who had written a little bit of a program, like a script or a program to automate some of their manual data entry job. Okay, if that was you already have that accomplishment in your past, so you bring that out and you just say, oh, that was an example of innovative thinking. I saw a particular problem and I saw an ability I had to be able to solve that problem in a very specific way. And so I put the two together and I came up with a custom solution for it. Nobody told me to do it. I just saw a problem that I knew how to solve. And so I brought my creative abilities to solve that. There you go. It was original, it was non-standard, and I was the only one that did it. And it was an innovation because it obviously had a great improvement. And then you go into the accomplishments. It accomplished a 20% time save on the process. It shortened the process by 20% and it reduced human error by, 150%? Something like that. There you go. That was an example of innovative thinking or creative problem solving. Okay, so the secret is having these stories already rehearsed. If they say, what's an accomplishment? You have like 5 to 10 stories of things from your past that you might have put them on your resume, you might not have, but you've rehearsed them and they're on the tip of your mind. And any one of these questions that they ask you, you're just going to pull one of those stories out and adapt it as an answer. Okay? Excuse me. Mark says, hi, Bill. Thanks for your experience. Great channel. Thank you. You talked before about not waiting for a job posting, but in essence, cold calling or emailing about a possible job. Whom do you email at the company? Just the job. Well, that's okay. Okay. See, I'm a detail-oriented person, and I don't do well with general questions, but let me try and sort through this. What you're describing is networking, okay? I don't recommend that you cold call anyone. If you're into cold calling, if you're a very extroverted, very charismatic, a salesperson type person, you can do it. But I don't recommend it. For most people, they don't like it and they're not that great at it. So I don't recommend that. I also don't recommend emailing people. Okay, you can do it, but I don't recommend it for a variety of reasons. What I do recommend is, this is where the LinkedIn connection was. I recommend using LinkedIn to do this, okay? Now, I wasn't going to plug my courses specifically today, but this is all included in my courses. I do have some videos on my channel for free that sort of get into it, okay? I have you know what? No, I can't bring it up in real time, but if you go to my actual YouTube channel, the page, I have a lot of playlists there. And if you scroll down to, there's a playlist called, what the hell was it called? But it sort of it was like a series of 6 videos. They're all very short, and they sort of talk about this. It's the networking method. Basically, you're proactive. So what you do, in a nutshell, is this is the alternative to responding to job ads, okay? What you do is you look for a list of companies that are in your area, that are in your industry. Okay, so let's say you're a graphic designer. In fact, I have a video that just answers the whole thing graphically, that shows you using Google Maps and everything, how you do this. You go to Google Maps, you zoom in on your city or your region, and then you enter in the search box with the map up on the screen. You enter in the search box, your name of your industry. So if you are you are a supply chain manager, okay? So you would enter supply chain or industrial supply chain. And then on the map, on the Google map, all these companies will pop up. They all pop up. And these are all companies that work in the supply chain industry. Okay, logistics, whatever. Right? So already right where you are, you've identified all the businesses around you that are in your industry. Okay? So that'll usually be a ton of companies. And then what you do is you then go to LinkedIn and you use LinkedIn. Now that you know the name of the companies, you use LinkedIn to see inside of each of those companies to the individuals. Okay. So in this one particular company that I know is just a mile away from my house, so it would be a very short commute if I got a job there. They work in my industry and they're close by. I then go on LinkedIn and I enter in that company and I do a people search and I see, okay, here's the owner, here's the manager, here's the head of the manager of the warehouse, here's the sales manager, for supply chain, whatever. Here's all the different people. Now, not only can I see the people, I can also look at their background, and I have the ability to send a message to them directly. Okay, so you get the idea. Like I'm sort of drawing you a map here. So like you've gone from, who would hire me to, these companies would hire me and they're close by. And then you've gone to, these are the people within the companies that are most likely the decision maker on who they would hire, right? And I know who they are. I know how to contact them. I can send a message directly, right? So just those 3 sort of things right there, you can see where this is going, right? You would then come up with some kind of a template message that says something along the lines of, hello, my name is Bill. I'm an expert supply chain manager. I've got a lot of experience. I solve this particular problem. I know your company does great work in supply chain. If ever you're looking for someone to join your team that can solve this problem, look no further, because I would love to work with you guys. If ever that happens, if ever you're looking for that, give me a call. Thanks and have a great day. Right? Now, you send that out. You're going to get, most people are not going to respond because they are just not hiring right now. But if you send this out to a lot of individuals, let's say 500 people, 800 people, you can contact 100 people in a day, So, you send it out to a lot of these people. They are appropriate because they are the manager in charge of a company or a part of a company that does what you do. And some of them, just by random probability, will be looking to hire somebody with your skills right now. And that could be 5% of the people, it could be 2% of the people, whatever. But if you're sending it out to like 800 people, what's 2% of 800? Like 16 people? There's 16 people that are looking to hire someone like you that are close by. And you just landed right in their lap. And even if they posted the job and they got some applicants, you're the only one, excuse me, that proactively reached out to them, and you sent a message that looked really professional, and they enjoyed reading it, and they were a little bit flattered by it, and it made them want to reach out to you. And that's a sample of what it's like to deal with you. So they're already getting a free sample of what you're like. Okay. So all of this stuff all put together, you can see how it can fit together into a way to get a job. And it's a variation of this that I recommend for a lot of people. Okay. That's what a part of my Get Hired course is about, incidentally. So it talks about resumes, it talks about job interviews, but it also talks a lot about this. It goes in depth into how you do every step of that, and what some of the options are. Okay, so yes, that's what it's not about cold calling. It's not about emailing. It's about using sort of that tool. And the other thing is that you're trying to minimize, how can I put this? The negative personal encounters or negative personal interactions. Because let's face it, searching for a job sucks. And a big part of the reason why it sucks is because you got to deal with people treating you like crap. People rejecting you, people saying no, people devaluing you to your face, like one person was just describing earlier in the stream, right? The other priority is you want to try and do this, and you want to try and do it and have positive experiences with people. If they're not interested, if it doesn't apply, they just don't respond. Big deal. And you don't pester them, okay? But some people do respond, and you focus on them. And you focus on having positive encounters. If they're not really into it, you don't bother. I mean, why go down that path unless you're like a masochist and you enjoy, getting rejected and dealing with people that are not interested in you and, sort of asking them for a job and having them reject you. I mean, you want to try and avoid that, right? So that's the thing. I mean, if you do this right, it can be a much more positive experience. You get people that are impressed with you. They're saying like, hey, you're the only person that ever reached out. And what you said, that really got me intrigued. And that's why we're here discussing it, to see if there's some potential to make this work. And what a lot of these people will do is that they don't have specific job vacancies, but they're always looking. Okay. As someone that's managed a business, I know this, you always have your eye out for talented people, because when you employ a group of people, a team of people, there's always attrition. People are always cycling in and cycling out. People retire, people move, people, they have family things, they have to move to another city, whatever. And so you're always kind of on the lookout for talented people, right? So that's what you're trying to tap into. And it's funny because when I mention this, sometimes I get some people that, they have a very strange kind of worldview. They jump all over me and say that, no, that's not how hiring works. And I think a lot of them, they've only ever worked in like very large organizations, like multinational companies, or the government, where it's like a very formalized hiring process. First of all, yes, it does work that way in those organizations too, despite what they say, whether they like to admit it or not. And secondly, the vast majority of people that have jobs are not working in large multinational corporations, in the big businesses. The vast majority of people that have jobs are working in small business. And once again, if this is a shock to you, don't take my word for it. Go and do your independent research, and you will see that that's true. Where I live in Canada, in the province of Manitoba, 85% of people that have jobs are working in small business. And that's more or less typical for almost the entire rest of the world. So when you go, if you live in a big city and you go downtown, you see all the skyscrapers downtown. Usually they have logos on it of big companies, and it looks like, ooh, those are the big companies. That's like 15% of all people working there are working for those companies. 85% of everyone else is working in the small companies that you don't actually see downtown. So what that means is it's a much more informal hiring process. If you talk to the boss likes you, they can hire you. Period. No questions, no red tape to get in the way. You don't have to talk to a recruiter. If the boss wants to hire you, the boss will hire you. That's how it works. So there's a great untapped sort of thing there. A lot of job seekers are not looking in those places. A lot of those companies might not even post formal jobs, or it's rare that they do. They post one formal job a year on their website, but they've actually hired 20 people throughout the year. And they've done all of, like, the other 19 people they hired was all through networking. Why post the job when you've got someone that's got a personal recommendation? One of the employees said, hey, this person is really good. You should interview them. And the boss says, okay, you're a good employee. I trust you. You've been here for years. And you're telling me this other candidate would be good? Okay, I'll talk to him. And usually that candidate works out. Okay, you're hired. See, no job ad, no recruiters. There might be an HR person to just scrutinize things, do background checks and set up payroll and all that, right? But that's how most people get hired. Okay, that was a long monologue. Hopefully that was interesting. There are still 34 people here, so I haven't put everyone to sleep, so that's encouraging. Okay, listen, I'm going to try and finish off a couple of these questions I had to get through, and then we'll go back to the chat. So let's see here. Okay, someone says, what to do when you get a job offer containing salary, date of start, relocation expenses before the interview? Can you raise the salary? Yes, you can always raise the salary. Remember, they can do whatever they're going to do, but you always have the ability to accept or reject anything that they propose, right? You don't have to accept anything they give you automatically. Now, I know that if you're desperate to get a job, it may seem like that. And if you're desperate, you absolutely need money, hey, you got to take what you can get. Beggars can't be choosers kind of thing. But hopefully if you get the job, hopefully you start to have money coming in, then you won't be desperate from that point onward. You could maybe start looking again and get more money, either at this position or at a new position. So, you know what I mean? Like, this is a tactic. They're trying to get you to accept what they're proposing. They want to hire you for a very little amount of money, and they want to hire you under these specific circumstances at this location, blah, blah. Like, they're going to do everything in their power to try and get you to say yes to that and accept it. They're going to play mind games with you. They're going to tell you lies that you don't realize are lies just to get you to accept and to think that, oh, this is a good situation. I should be thankful to be here. Okay? Sometimes what they're saying is true and it's a good company. Other times it's a bad company and they're lying to you and they're using tactics like this to get you to say yes to something that it's really not in your best interest. Okay? So yeah, they can do this for you, but you can always negotiate salary. And if they don't listen, let them get to the end of the process, let them offer you the job. And then at that point you say, well, no, like I said, I need X. Well, so I'll get back to you. Right? Remember, you can make a choice. You are in control of what you do, okay? A lot of times we feel like we're not in control because we feel like we have no options. Okay, so sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. If you legitimately don't have any options, you have to say yes. But, because you just need money. You just need money, period. But, you know what I'm saying? Unless you're at that point, you completely have options. You can decide what you want to do, and no one can bully you into it. Okay, I think this is the last question here. I had to leave my last job due to a bad boss who would not deal with an even worse coworker who was completely unprofessional and putting myself at risk. Okay. Under employment law in the UK, this is called constructive dismissal. Okay. That was 2 years ago, and now I have not been employed since. I was self-employed within a different industry. How do I get around this question now that I'm trying to gain employment within the original industry and they will look at my last relevant employer? Thanks. Incidentally, the shorter your sentences are, the easier it is to parse. The easier it is to read. Okay, little tip there. If you want to write professionally, this is very counterintuitive, but one thought per sentence, short sentences, and it's super easy to read. No matter how complex the ideas are, it reads very easily. Okay, so basically this sort of long thing is basically to say, Like, what's the question here? I had to leave. This is a story. Completely unprofessional. How do I get around this question now that I'm trying to gain employment? Oh, this is why did you leave your last job? That's the question. Why did you leave your last job? Let's say you left your last job on a bad note. You were fired, or some kind of kerfuffle like this, where that was like an employment issue with HR, and you had a bad boss, and your boss did things wrong according to the law of the land and employment standards, and but anyway, you found yourself out of a job. The problem is, the more you talk about negative stuff like this in a job interview, the more it gives them a bad first impression. So, like I said earlier, don't say bad things about yourself. Okay? So, you saying, oh, I was fired, or I had a problem with my boss, and we couldn't resolve it, so I had to leave. These are bad things. What they're thinking is, oh, okay, so if I hire you, you'll probably have a problem with your boss and have to leave and not get along with your boss. Or you'll probably end up being fired from this job too, because you got fired from the last one, right? These are all negative things. Don't say negative things about yourself. If ever they ask you why you left your last job, that falls under the category of they're not entitled to full and complete information, okay? Now, you don't want to lie. Okay, lying is bad. But by the same token, giving full and complete details of confidential information like that's none of their business, is not the thing to do. Okay? We were talking earlier about technical questions. They ask you technical questions. It's like that situation where a guy comes up to you off the street and says, hey, what's your credit card number? You don't have to answer. Just because somebody asks you the question, you don't have to give that information, especially if it's not in your best interest. There's harm. It's doing harm to you to answer that question truthfully, okay? You get to decide what information you disclose to people. And an employer asking you about the confidential dealings you had with another employer, that falls under, it's none of their business. They don't have any requirement to know that. There is no law that says you need to disclose that, at least in most countries, as far as I know. Every country that I've heard of, that I know of, that's not a law where you have to disclose that. Okay? There may be laws about other things, like if you have a criminal record and they ask you, do you have a criminal record? If you lie, that's bad. That's actually against the law. I believe that's the case in some countries. But this is not a situation like that. Just because they ask you the question and they seem like they're serious and you feel all this pressure because you got all these people staring at you and they're very serious expressions on their face and they ask you this pointy question. And you want this job, you don't have to give this information. So what you say is well, I'm just ready to do more. And then you shut up about it. That's all they need to know. Why did you leave your last job? It's like, well, I liked my last job actually, but you know what? I was ready to do more. And that's what brings me here. You describe what you're ready to do. Coincidentally, it's a description of what this company does. You know what I mean? Like, that's how you answer these. They're not entitled to this kind of information. So let's just leave it at that. Obviously, you do it a little bit more professionally and a bit more courteously than what I'm talking to you guys now, but that's the gist of it. Okay, so that is all the questions that I had on the comments. Let's just see what's in the chat here, and I'll try and finish this up. Where do we leave off? Oh, how do you deal with ageism? I'm sure there's all kinds of modern new age sort of answers to that from people that specialize in discrimination and inclusion and stuff like that. I can give you sort of my approach to it is, listen, I mean, people have their own opinions. This is the double-edged sword with society. We all have our own opinions. The people that are assessing your value when you apply for a job have their own opinions. Most people's opinions are completely out to lunch, right? I mean, the famous thing that I've repeated over and over again is them asking a candidate in a job interview, what sports team do you root for? And if you said a certain team, they would not hire you because the boss likes the other team. That's a thing. I saw that happen right in front of me. Like this is the thing. People have their own way of assessing somebody's value, and some of them are just silly. Now, you're going to get ageism. Ageism is a thing. And I don't like to use these terms because when you say the term ageism, to me, just my personal interpretation of it, I don't know what the formal interpretation of it is, but my interpretation is that it's an unfair judgment about you based on your age, okay, and inaccurate. So, but however, we encounter this everywhere. You don't see a lot of CEOs of multinational corporations that are 21 years old, okay? You don't see a lot of physically strenuous jobs that are filled by people that are 98 years old. You just don't see that. Now, is that ageism? You could argue that, yes, out there should be more 21-year-old CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. Okay, fair enough. But here's the deal. Like anything else, it's part of a culture of an organization. It doesn't stop at like judging somebody on their age. It also continues into judging somebody on their personality. Earlier in this stream, we were talking about the question, what do you do outside of work? What are your hobbies? They're judging you on that, on your hobbies, right? People are going to form opinions about you on everything. So the blanket solution for all these things that I've seen is go to a place that values what you have. Okay, if you're the only person in your workplace that likes sports, everybody else is into other things. They're all into movies. They're all into role-playing games. They're all into cosplay. They're all into, like whatever, but not sports. And you're the only one that's into sports. You're really, really into football or hockey or cricket or soccer or whatever you're into, They may decide, I'm not going to hire that person because they're not a fit, right? Okay, so you go where they do value that stuff. If you are old and you're worried about ageism, okay, you're a senior citizen, you're above 65 or something, and you're still looking for a job, go to where the person making the decisions of who to hire is over 65. Don't go to McDonald's where the person deciding who they hire is 16 years old. Okay, if you're young, if you're not yet 18, you're under 18. You would not go to a place where all the people making the decisions are all over 70 years old. You know what I mean? Like, that's the thing. You have to find places that value what you have. And that's not just limited to ageism. That's applies to everything. Okay. Like, for example, myself, I would probably be open to some bias if I applied for a job as a personal trainer or a fitness coach, right? They may take one look at me and go, I'm not even going to talk to you, right? You can't be good at this job. Right? Now, is that bias? Of course it is. But no matter who you are, this is just my personal opinion. No matter who you are, you're going to be up against all kinds of people that just they don't value you for whatever personal opinion. Now, whether that crosses into the area of like a legal bias or not, because it just is gone unrecognized till now, the solution is the same. Find a place where they value you. Find a place where the decision maker is like you in the sense that, of the thing you're worried about. Okay. Now, I'm not any kind of professional that deals with that, like racism, sexism, ageism, specifically. So I'm not a professional when it comes to that. I'm just sharing sort of my opinions based on my observations over like 30 plus years, being a manager and stuff. So hopefully that helps. That's the best answer I can give you. But, seek out other sources of information too to get a more complete sort of answer to that. But I've seen so many of these. I mean, people with disabilities, varying disabilities. I have someone with disabilities in my family, and that's another one, right? Sexual orientation, ethnicity, like all these different things. But it doesn't just stop at those things. Those have gotten a lot of attention. It stops. It continues into the areas of like, what's your background? Is it good to hire people in a company where everyone comes from an accounting background? Even the salespeople. Is that good? No, because there's no diversity. You need diversity of skill sets. If every single person in an organization is an extrovert who plays sports, is that good? No, because you have no diversity of personality types. Right? There's all kinds of these. So anyway, I'll get off my soapbox about this, but I'm just saying that there's so many of those. The blanket solution for any of those that you're worried about is to go and find places where they value the thing that you're sensitive about, the thing that you feel you might be at a disadvantage, or it might be perceived as a disadvantage to some people. Okay? What's your political opinions or your social opinions? There's another one. Are people biased against that? Of course they are. Go to a place where they value that aspect of yourself. Okay. So that's kind of the solution for that I've seen. Lynn says, how do you answer the question about what your weakness? Does we just say, I don't have one, or else? Well, I've done videos on that. So please go watch the video. It's like one of the most popular videos on my channel. Bottom line is, don't say I don't have one. Okay, that's not a good answer. They don't believe you, and they know you're lying. So if they know you're lying about something, that's usually the kiss of death. Okay. There's a very specific way to answer that. Check out my video on that. Okay. Very easy to find. Just go and type in the company's expert, what is your weakness? Or the company's expert, weaknesses, something like that. What is the typical questions to ask at the end of the interview? Once again, I've done an amazing video on that. Go check it out. It's 1 minute long, and I give you like a ton of them. Okay. How to deal with the situation where the interviewer says you are too old to fit our age policy, although I'm a deserving candidate? Well, hopefully the answer I just gave that applies. That applies to this. That's ageism. Okay. Now sometimes it's legitimate, sometimes it isn't. It depends on the situation. Okay. And what I mean by that is that if it's a very physically demanding job and you can't, it's pretty clear by your build or whatever that you cannot do a physically demanding job or something, then maybe you get away with it. I mean, they would have to assess that properly, right? They can't just like look at you and make a snap judgment. They'd have to assess that properly. But, if this is something that is completely inaccurate, there are ways. I'm not one for blowing the whistle on a company for that. I think that, yes, it's something you can do if you have a certain personality where you're into that and you can take the handling the conflict. You can. A lot of places they'll have, like for example, where I am, they'll have some kind of government department that deals with employment standards and, enforcing hiring practices. Like you have to follow the law of the land. You have to follow the law when it comes to employment standards, and human rights and things as part of that. And there's usually a department of the government that you could find quite easily on Google that handles this. And usually what they'll have like a sort of phone number, a toll-free phone number where you can call and advised them and said, I went for an interview. I don't want to give you my name, but I went for an interview with this company and they asked me this question, which I believe is illegal. Is it illegal? And the person will tell you, yes, that's illegal. They're not allowed to ask that. Well, they asked me that question and I feel that they, were racist, sexist, ageist, whatever. And you can report that. And depending where you are in the world, what country, different things happen. But in some countries, they sort of use that as a sort of excuse to sort of look at that company and go and do an audit on it. So you can sort of blow the whistle on them. You can do stuff like that. I'm not an expert on doing that, and I'm not going to go into detail, but it is possible to do that. But I would just move on. Why force a bad company to have to look at you seriously to hire you? Do you really want to work for them? I mean, whatever. Each to their own. But you could go down that route if you wish. If it were me, I would just simply move on. There are many fish in the sea. I would devote yourself to learning this game, learning how to connect with them, how to find the places that value you, and how to impress them so they hire you. That's the approach I would advocate. But, everybody's got their own sort of take on it. Okay, I have to wrap this up pretty soon. There's a couple of last little things here. How do I convert my contract role to FTE? What's FTE? First time employment? What's FTE? Gutty says, I request you make a video on conflict management. Well, the problem is when I do that stuff, nobody watches it. I think I might have had some earlier videos like that I did a couple of years ago, like 3 years ago when I was just sort of starting a YouTube thing for fun. I did videos on some of that stuff. So maybe check those out. Do a search for the company's expert conflict or something like that. See what comes up. Nate says, what is the general consensus on disclosing a disability such as high-functioning autism? I don't know. It depends what country you're in and what region you're in. And those laws have changed over the years quite quickly. So there is no blanket answer to that. But you can get answers by researching what the law is in your region, wherever you are in the world. You can get answers to that. Okay, so start with a Google search. Start with Googling the law. Okay, and then, like I said just a moment ago, usually a lot of these places, like Employment Standards, they will have a sort of general phone number where you can call and ask an expert. Okay, you can say, I have a question, I'm trying to apply for a job, but I'm wondering what the law says about this. Can I do this? Can I do that? Can they do this? Can they do that? And they'll give you some answers. And, beyond that, you can report things like I just mentioned, but it's really a resource for you to learn what the law is, so you know what you're required to do and what they're required to do. Oh, I see. Full-time employer. Okay, so how do I convert my contract role to a full-time employer? That's tough. Because technically, if the employer doesn't want to do this, they're not going to, because they've already got you as a contract. Now, once again, if you're really important to them and if you threaten to leave, and when I say threaten to leave, I mean you actually leave. Your contract runs out, you say, okay, goodbye. Right? And you walk out the door, they go, wait, come back. Let's talk about this, right? That's a situation when maybe they might choose to do this. However, they may not. Now, if they're a good company that does want to treat people reasonably and you're important to them, what I would do is that I would talk to my employer early on. I wouldn't wait till like the 11th hour when your contract is about to expire. I would talk to them at least 3 months in advance, okay? And I would say to my immediate boss, look, just so you know, my contract comes to an end here in 3 months or whatever, and I'm thinking beyond that point now, if I'm going to stay on or I'm going to find alternate employment. And I would like to work full-time here, okay? But because of the, you could say like whatever your situation is, I'm looking into that and this is my first choice. However, if that's not forthcoming, I'm going to have to start looking at alternatives, as I'm sure you'll understand, that kind of thing. So I would do this early on. And if they're receptive to trying to make you a full-time employee, give them some time. And then don't just mention it once, mention it like 2 or 3 times, maybe like a week apart kind of thing. I'd also contact HR independently of talking to your boss. Okay. And then just see what everybody says. Okay, that's the best chance you have of doing it, in my opinion. They're a great company, and I already know someone who works here from a previous firm. Okay, that's great. That's a good start. But you're going to need something permanent, right? So, I wouldn't threaten and say, like, if you don't make this permanent, then I'm not coming back, that kind of thing. I would give the impression of, like, I want to work with you. I want to get through this together so that we do what's best for all of us. But if I don't hear anything by this date, then I'm going to have to find alternative employment beyond my contract expiration date. I'm sure you'll understand. I have no choice at that point. So, that's a very reasonable position. And the fact that you're coming to them early, you're being reasonable, you're wanting to work with them, that will hopefully count for something. That'll give you some points so that if it is possible and they want to do it, they'll do it. That answers my question. Excellent. Okay, well, thank you very much, everybody. You guys have been awesome, and thank you for the turnout. Hopefully that was helpful. I'm going to be here every Wednesday at the same time for the next 3 weeks doing these live streams, and I hope to see you there. If you have any questions, I'm here to help. Thank you very much. You're all awesome. Take care, and I will see you next week. Ciao.